Whether you're a cradle Catholic or a new convert, we all have questions about our faith traditions. From the history, to the prayers, to the culture it's inspired, there's so much to explore. To help us make sense of it all, I'll be talking to the experts at the Church of St. Paul the Apostle in New York City to get to the heart of how to live out our sacred and ancient faith in the modern world. No matter how long you've been journeying with Christ, we could all use a bit more practice. I'm Jack Schneider, and this is Practicing Catholic. Hi everybody, welcome back to Practicing Catholic. Today I'm sitting down with Father Joe Ciccone. He has been a Paulist Father since 1989. He has served as the pastor here as well as our church in Rome. So, Father Joe,
not the pastor there.
Oh, he was not the pastor there.
Pastor.
He was an associate pastor there. Father Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Today we're going to talk about the Triduum. So
Okay.
I guess the first question would have to be, what is the Triduum?
Well, as the word implies, Triduum is Latin for three, namely the 3 great days that precede Easter. As we get ready, as we kind of ramp up for the greatest celebration of the church year. In fact, Triduum is where it all really begins. Christians, they celebrated Easter first as the most important day. Of course, every Sunday was a little Easter. Every Sunday was Resurrection Day, called the Lord's Day. It makes more sense in Italian, Domenica. Those 3 days that led up to the great Easter Vigil, because Easter began in the nighttime, because the understanding from scriptures that Jesus rose from the dead somewhere between the end of the Saturday and the dawn of the first day of the week, Sunday. And in other languages, they don't use the word Easter, they use the word Pascha, especially the Orthodox, the great Pascha. And that makes more sense because Pascha comes from Pesach, from the Jewish, meaning Passover. For the Christian, Jesus is the new Passover because he passes over from death to life and then allows us as his followers to do the same, to pass from our own physical death to a new life. The 3 days actually kind of evolved over time. Things began there, and then Lent was added before that. Lent was a period of preparation for the catechumens, those who were going to become baptized. And by the Council of Nicaea in the 4th century, the church then extends Lent to the entire church. But it culminates with Holy Week, and then Holy Week ends with the Triduum, okay? And the Triduum begins with Holy Thursday. Interestingly, what came first was the Easter Vigil that we celebrate on Holy Saturday night, then the celebrations for Good Friday, and then, at least according to my reading, in the 7th century, they started celebrating what we call the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Holy Thursday. So you have those 3 days. Holy Thursday, the Mass of the Lord's Supper. Good Friday, the celebration of the Lord's Passion. And then the great vigil of Easter that ushers in the first Mass or Eucharist of Easter itself. So, Holy Thursday, it's referred to as the evening Mass of the Lord's Supper. Begins with great joy, actually, and the singing of the glory to God. You had also earlier asked me, why is it different from all other Masses? Well, because it's part of these 3 great days, which is considered as one continuous celebration, using the Jewish sense of time, going from the evening, because for the Jews, the Sabbath begins in the evening, and going to the next day, and then the evening of Good Friday to the evening or nighttime of Holy Saturday, and then that night until the night of Easter Day itself. There's a particular focus that happens, though, on Holy Thursday. There's a focus on ministry as service. Instead of any gospel that's about the beginning of the Eucharist, so to speak, even though there is a reading from St. Paul about how early Christians celebrated the first Eucharist. The gospel is very different. It's from John's gospel, and it's all about the washing of the feet and how Jesus says to them, you must do this. It's called a mandate or a command by Jesus. As I have done for you, you must do as well. And that mandate allowed the day to be called Maundy, Thursday. Okay, a lot of people forget that piece. And the other thing that's different about it is that there's no formal ending to it. You know, we get the word mass from misa, which is dismissal. You know, go out, go forth now, you are dismissed, go to love and serve the Lord, etc., or go in peace. There's none of that there because it's going to continue. The one great celebration is going to continue for another 2 days. Okay, so that's what makes it different. When people come into the church, the tabernacle that contains the reserved Eucharist is emptied with the door open, okay? That also signifies that something different is happening here. And then when the bread and wine are consecrated at this Mass, the bread alone is reserved for the next night on Holy Thursday, where a communion service is added in. The vestments for Holy Thursday are white, which changes them for Good Friday. And we say that on Holy Thursday, Lent ends. That's the formal ending of Lent. We now enter into a very unique kind of season, this Triduum, before we then enter into the Easter season. The scriptures are really interesting that night. We hear about our Jewish ancestry. We hear about the Exodus, the big story, okay, of the Hebrews in the desert being led by the cloud and during the day and the pillar of fire at night. Then we have this reading, again, as I said, from about the earliest celebration of the Eucharist that we read about in St. Paul's letters. And finally, the Gospel of the Last Supper from John that has the washing of the feet. There is no Alleluia, because that's reserved until we get into Easter. They just sing a regular kind of Lenten acclamation. After the homily, we have this ritual that's really very powerful called the washing of the feet, taken from the Gospel. It's optional, actually, but I think places that would leave it out for either time reasons or whatever, kind of miss out on a really powerful symbol. Originally, when this was done, it was the priest or the pastor washing the feet of men. Usually they pick 12 as a kind of a hearkening to the apostles of Jesus. But the current ritual doesn't give a number at all. And then I think it was in 987 that the Bishops' Conference in the United States said this: it's become customary in many places to invite both men and women to be participants in this rite in recognition of the service that should be given by all the faithful to the church and to the world. And I think that's pretty powerful. So in many, many parishes, maybe certain representatives of parish leadership come forward or are asked to come forward, and the pastor will wash their feet. In some other places, after that, they then go out and wash the feet of their brothers and sisters, okay? It's not meant to be a role play. It's not meant to be a repetition of what Jesus did. It's more about an understanding of who we are as followers of Jesus, that we serve one another with great humility. And I think the way that ritual action is celebrated really indicates that a lot. After the washing of the feet, there's actually a collection, usually for the Holy Land ministries in Jerusalem. And then there's the presentation of the gifts, and there's like a regular Mass. Now, what's different at the end about this particular Mass is there's a post-communion prayer, but there's no dismissal, okay? Because, again, we're going to continue the next day on Good Friday. But what happens is that the consecrated bread, wafers, are placed in a ciborium, and they are processed or paraded around the church to a special chapel or place of reservation that is called the Chapel of Repose, the Chapel of Rest. It's not so much to mimic Jesus being in the tomb. Years ago, a lot of popular religion had that in people's minds. That's not what it's about. It's about watching and praying with Jesus. It's about taking this time to reflect about who we are as a Eucharistic people. So people pray in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament that's on this special chapel or in this special chapel or altar, usually different from where the Eucharist is normally reserved, unless it's normally reserved in a totally separate building or place. And then everyone departs in silence.
And so you mentioned a lot about, sort of how Holy Thursday reflects our commandment to serve.
Yeah.
How do you think that helps us prepare for Easter?
I would think if it gets through into people's minds and into their hearts, this is who we're about, or what we should be about as an Easter people. We have hope because we don't believe that this life is the end, that there's something more because of Jesus' resurrection. And how is it that we're supposed to live the Christian life? At the end of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus talks about how we are to be there to help those who struggle. When did you see me when I was naked and clothed me, or hungry and fed me, et cetera, et cetera? We are meant to be a people who reach out to others who are in need. And that needs to be implanted in these days of reflection. Because even Jesus' death on the cross, we say, is a service done on our behalf out of love.